What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another week of NFL picks. Officially in the month of December now, we are in the home stretch of the season. And this week, we have a lot of big games, a lot of games that are going to decide division races down the stretch, what the playoffs look like in both the AFC and NFC. A lot of teams kind of in a do or die situation. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Now, this is the final week for bye weeks. We have our final four teams that have not had a bye week yet. They are having their bye weeks this week. The Carolina Panthers are obviously coming off a very big win against the Rams, and they are in a position to make a run at the playoffs when they come back from their bye week for the final 4 weeks. The New England Patriots obviously have been one of the best teams in the NFL so far this season. They are in great position. The New York Jets, obviously, they have a lot to look forward to with their future in Jackson Dart, and look to see what they can get out of him these final 4 games so they can take a little rest. And then the San Francisco 49ers, another team, they are really looking to gear up for that playoff push. Now, taking a look at the overall record, last week 8-8, and honestly, considering the start I had to the week, kind of okay with it. There were obviously a lot of upsets on Thursday and then Friday. I don't think a lot of people were expecting those results. Overall season record 124, 69, and the one tie. So, getting into it, first game of the week, Thursday night football from Detroit in a very big game in the NFC playoff picture for both teams. Both teams trying to really stay alive, especially for the Lions. This is a team that they had 15 wins last year. Now, if it ended today, they've had a pretty solid season, but they would be on the outside of the playoff picture. And the Dallas Cowboys have been one of, if not the hottest team in the NFL over the past couple weeks, but they're still on the outside of the playoff picture. So two teams, they got to have it. It's going to be a very tough matchup, and I really feel like there's been a lot of people that have doubted Dallas, included myself, over these past couple weeks, especially. I don't think a lot of people thought they would beat the Chiefs. They did. I definitely think you look at Dallas differently after that. They're not out of the NFC East race as of right now either. So this is a very big game for them. For Detroit, they got to stay afloat. I feel like Detroit at home, they know they have to get it more. They have the firepower to win there. They're going to be looking to bounce back. So give me the Lions to pick up the win and get back on track. I think it can be a high scoring game, and I definitely think Dallas has a chance, but it's just that environment that Detroit is going to bring for this game. They know they have to have it. So I'm going to pick the Lions to win 38-31 in a high scoring game. Moving into Sunday, and this is not one of the games that will have an effect on playoff standings. Draft order, certainly. The Tennessee Titans, man, they are just absolutely awful. You almost got to feel bad for Cam Ward. And the Cleveland Browns, another disappointing year, but definitely looking to see what you can get out of Shedeur Sanders. And look, at the end of the day, I think in a game like this, obviously any team it feels like could win. But Cleveland at home. Shador has shown flashes. I expect him to continue doing that. He wants an opportunity to compete for that job next year. So I'm going to pick the Browns to win. I just think that defense it's going to be a very rough day for Cam Ward, mainly because he doesn't have anyone else out there to really help him. And I think that Myles Garrett, that Cleveland pass rush, gets to him. So I think the Browns, they get the win here, 20-12. Next, Seahawks and the Falcons. And listen, as a Falcons fan, it's been a very rough year, and I think I've made that pretty clear. The fact that Raheem Morris still has a job, I think, shows how unserious the Falcons are as a team. But on the other hand, you have a Seattle team very serious about winning, very much alive in playoff contention. They have a very big next couple weeks coming up to end the year, so this is definitely a game that they have to have, and I do think they get it done. I wouldn't be shocked if the Falcons are able to keep this game close at least most of the way with Kirk Cousins at quarterback. But in the end, I don't think they got enough to be able to overthrow Seattle, especially with how the Falcons season is going. It always feels like they're going to end on the wrong side of a loss. They're going to end up with a loss on the wrong side of these one-score games. So I'm going to pick the Seahawks to win 30-24 and go to 10-3 on the year. Next, this is a monstrous game in the AFC South and in the AFC playoff picture. A game that will decide sole possession of first place. The Colts, the Jaguars, and it's gonna be a very big one in Jacksonville. And the Colts haven't won in Jacksonville in well over a decade. This is a Colts team that started 7-1, and now they've lost three of their last four. It kind of feels like maybe they've been figured out in a way. Jacksonville has kind of gained some momentum back. This is a very big game for them, and this is going to be a very big litmus test for Liam Cohen. Can he win? We saw him win a big game against the Chiefs early this year. Can he win a big game late in the year is the question. I think with Jacksonville being at home, I think the answer is yes. They play one more time in Indianapolis, but I think for this game in particular, I think Jacksonville comes out. I think it's a shootout. I think this game is ultimately going to go how they want it to go. They're going to be able to play ahead most of the game, and in the end, maybe a game-winning field goal. They come out with a victory, go to 9-4, and they take sole possession of first place in the AFC South. Next, the Commanders and the Vikings, two teams that have had disappointing years. You gotta love the effort that Washington showed in that game last night, though, against the Broncos. Absolutely amazing. It was I think, one of the games of the year so far. Minnesota, it's been a very disappointing year at quarterback. A lot of questions that have to be answered this offseason. With that being said, Washington, they're playing with a little bit of momentum. They're playing with a little bit of fire. They're going to try to, I think, finish the season off strong. So I'm going to pick Washington to get the win here and go to 4-9 on the year. Just feels like a game, whether it's Mariota or Jane Daniels being back, which also could be very big for them. I think Washington gets the win and goes to 4-9 on the year. Next, the Bengals and the Bills, and this is another game, especially for Cincinnati, all of a sudden, in that AFC North, that all of a sudden is a little bit wide open for the Bengals, even at 4-8. This is a very big game. The Bills 8-4, but the Bills have had some letdown games this year. And even, in that win against the Steelers, obviously it was one that the Bills needed, but I really don't know how much of it was actually just the fact that the Steelers really beat themselves in a lot of circumstances. You still give credit to the Bills, but they really did just take advantage of the Steelers really kind of handing that game away, especially in the second half. I get the feeling, especially with Joe Burrow back, this Bengals team, they could beat just about anyone. We saw them do it to Baltimore. So I think this is a high-scoring game. We've seen Joe Burrow go into Buffalo before and win. I think it happens again. I think the Bengals go in there. I think they pull off an upset. They keep their season alive. 38-35, a high-scoring game. I think the Bengals get the win. I think it's another tough loss for Buffalo to take, but I think the Bengals win this to keep their season alive. Next, matchup in the NFC South, the Saints and the Buccaneers. New Orleans can play spoiler. Tampa, they're looking to really get things back on track. They got a win against Arizona last week after losing 3 straight. This is a game I think the Buccaneers, they know they have to have, especially to keep some distance between them and Carolina, who they still play twice. So I'm going to pick the Buccaneers to win. I could see New Orleans keeping it close, but I do think in the end that Tampa Bay does end up winning. Next, another big game will decide sole possession of first place in the AFC North. Steelers, Ravens, it's in Baltimore. Honestly, these are two teams that they've just not been playing well. Pittsburgh hasn't been playing well. Baltimore's been winning, but Lamar Jackson has not been impressive. It really could just come down to what defense is able to make more stands in this game. You would love to see the quarterback step up, but that's just not the way it's been going. Both these teams are playing very sluggish right now. And it's a tough matchup to honestly pick. I mean, with how these teams are playing, it almost feels like, they're playing at that same slow pace. Neither of them honestly want this division, which has kept Cincinnati alive. But in the end, the fact that Baltimore's at home, I am going to pick them to win this game. I wouldn't be shocked if Pittsburgh won, but I think it's a low scoring game. I think Baltimore gets the win 15 to 12. Next, the Dolphins and the Jets. Miami needs to win this if they want any chance to keep their season alive. It's hard to honestly even believe that they have a chance to do that, but they certainly do. And I think they come in here. I think they get a win. I feel like this is a game that you gotta win if you are Mike McDaniel. You might be on pace to maybe saving your job once again, but you gotta win this game. This is just a game that you cannot lose to the Jets. They gotta win last week in the Jets, but Miami, you gotta go in there. You gotta take care of business. You have been playing better. You got a little winning streak going. You got to extend that, and you got to win this game, and I think you do, 24 to 14. Heading into the late window, Broncos and Raiders. Denver survived a big scare from Washington. And honestly, it feels like Denver is just kind of treading, though. It really does feel like that. But I do think that at the end of the day, this is a Raiders team that is kind of uninspired overall. So I think that Denver can come in here. It'll pretty much be a Broncos home game. I think they take over and they end up getting the win. They go to 11 and 2 on the year. Raiders fall to 2 and 11. Next, the Rams and the Cardinals. Arizona's just been playing awful. The Rams are looking for a big bounce back. Matthew Stafford's going to have that game. I don't got to explain much more. The Rams come in, they get the victory, go to 10 and 3 on the year. Arizona falls to 3 and 10. You got to wonder, when are they going to fire Jonathan Gannon? You would have to assume, it's coming sooner, if not, in the season. Only a few weeks left. It certainly will happen at the end of the year. Now, for the big game, of the week, Chicago and Green Bay, the top two teams in the NFC North. And it's been a while since this matchup has really had both teams being super competitive, but that is the reality. Chicago has definitely been one of the surprise teams this year. You got to give kudos to Ben Johnson for the job he's done. Green Bay, ever since, kind of rocky start, they've gotten back on track, got a big win against Detroit, and these teams, they play two times still. This is the first of two times that they play. I think here in Lambeau Field, I think you got to give it to the Packers at the end of the day, them in their environment. If Chicago can go into Lambeau and get a win, that I think is going to be absolutely massive. But I definitely think Chicago will have an opportunity to win in Soldier Field, but in Lambeau, I think you got to give it to the Packers. So I think Green Bay wins, and they take control of the NFC North back. Sunday Night Football, and I don't think the Chiefs have had a must-win game like this in many, many, many years just to keep their playoff hopes alive. But this is the case, and they're facing a red-hot Texans team that is not going to give them an easy time in this ball game. With that being said, I do think that the Chiefs come out. I think they get the win. Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, they know they got to have it. I think the Texans play them tough. I think it's a good, close game. But in the end, Kansas City comes out with the win by 1 point, going to 7 and 6, getting back over 500. And final game of the week, Eagles Chargers on Monday Night Football from SoFi. There are reports that Justin Herbert's looking to play even though he's having surgery on his left hand, so that definitely does help that it's not his throwing arm, throwing hand. But look, I just, this feels like a Philly spot. It feels like a spot that Philly is able to come in and, they're going to look to finally get their run game going. You need Saquon to show up starting really at this point. You're still in control of your season, but you can't fall too far behind and let Dallas back into this division race. So I think Philly knows they have to win this game after dropping those last two. I think they come out, they get the win 24-17. We see Philly, they just grind their way to victory. Could be similar to the game they had versus the Packers earlier this year. Probably a little more high scoring though. So I think the Eagles win 24-17. But with that being said, appreciate everyone for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, share, and I will see you all in the next one.